Hey everyone. Welcome to 10 Reasons Why You I think my Wi-Fi might have went out. But yes, welcome. My name is Marissa Price. I am a Black woman social worker, intuitive healer, freelancing coach as well. But please subscribe if you're interested in content around healing, understanding things like overworking, especially as more of us are reclaiming our rest unapologetically in these times, prioritizing ourselves. So please subscribe. Again, please like this video if you like it, comment below if it resonates, and if you're here live, please introduce yourselves. But yeah, let's get into it. 10 reasons why you overwork yourself and ways to intervene. Y'all, I'm out of breath. I was just dancing. Let me take a breath. But yes, so this idea came to me just after kind of trying to understand why I overworked myself for most of my life, right? As I reflect on my time in school, elementary school, middle school, high school, college, and I'll be speaking with Dr. Maya on Friday at 8 p.m. We'll be talking about how academia harmed us and how we're healing if you want to tune into that conversation. But yeah, just constantly overworking, constantly striving for external validation, which I talk about on my channel a lot. We're often placed in these traps, right, of being told that we're not worthy until we achieve X, Y, and Z. And it has to be at this time frame, right, that's told to us, or else it doesn't count. So all of these things lead us into a trap, really, of overworking ourselves. And how do we intervene and take our rest, reclaim our rest, which I'll be speaking about tomorrow with Sister Afia, reclaiming your inner peace and rest, a free event. It has reached capacity, but I'll be sure to share future events with y'all. And speaking of that, please sign up to my email list so that you're notified when I do host free events, offerings like that in the future. Please be sure you're on my email list, which is on the screen. So yeah, if y'all are here, please feel free to say hello. Like I said, I'm out of breath. I was just dancing, trying to bring some joy into my day. But yes, 10 reasons why you overwork yourself and ways to intervene. And so the first reason I have the trauma of racial capitalism. So we're just going to start off here, okay? And so racial capitalism is a term coined by Professor of Political Science and Black Studies, Cedric J. Robinson, who says that racial capitalism is a concept reframing the history of capitalism as grounded in the extraction of social and economic value from people of marginalized identities, racial identities, typically from Black people, right? So I think this definition of capitalism really fits better for me when I think about the roots of capitalism, right? The enslavement of people, the stripping of people from their lands, right? Turning them, in quotes, into machines, right? As Trisha Hersey says. But we are not machines. And we have resisted this ever since this idea was put into the lexicon, right? It didn't exist before. So that's important to realize that there was a time before this when we were not viewed as machines, right? And so how can we now unlearn this idea of racial capitalism that tells us that we are here to be extracted from, right? That our value as people is only in what we produce, which I'm going to get into too. Right? Another reason under racial capitalism, you don't have enough resources. The manufactured system of scarcity, of poverty, right? This oppressive system of poverty that literally puts resources in some people's hands and not in other people's hands. And we see the way that plays out, right? And so if you don't have enough resources, you will feel pressure to overwork, living in this oppressive system that deliberately restricts resources from us. Hey y'all, good to see you. Butterfly effect, good afternoon. Very relevant and interesting topic. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Debbie, hello from Sacramento. Hey, good. Thank you for joining. But yes, yeah. So the resources are deliberately withheld, right? So that's the first reason why you might overwork yourself. The trauma of racial capitalism. Again, I'll read this again. Racial capitalism is a concept reframing the history of capitalism as grounded in the extraction of social and economic value from people of marginalized racial identities, typically from Black people, right? We've seen our labor over time for centuries be exploited, be extracted to build, right? What we're told other people build. Okay, but how is this like giving us the idea that we have to overwork to earn our worth? We have to work ourselves past the point of exhaustion, right? To be worthy. Knowing this is not true and actually like telling yourself that this is not true, that's one of the ways to intervene. Understanding the roots of racial capitalism, how the system even came into place. And I just read a book, We Will Rest, The Art of Escape by Trisha Hersey, which I will actually put here. So I would highly recommend this book if y'all are interested in learning more. It's a really creative, innovative type of book. And I read it in one sitting. It took me about an hour, right? It's a quick read, but it's one I'm going to have to go back and reread and really digest. And yeah, it's like modeled off some of the posters of liberation posters that we saw during slavery, right? During the period of enslavement. So yes, I would recommend this book. Hey, Jasmine. Good. Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining. Y'all, let me catch my breath. Let me take a deep breath. Okay. Yes, so that's the first reason why you may overwork. Second reason, you're experiencing intersectional oppression. Hey, Michelle, good to see you here. Thank you for joining. Thank you. Yeah, so intersectionality, coined in 1989 by Professor Kimberly Crenshaw, describes how race, class, gender, and other characteristics intersect with one another and overlap. This is really important to understand, especially as Black women. We have multiple identities that intersect, right, that lead to even heightened oppression than what we typically see, right? So again, race, class, gender, sexual orientation, poverty status, ableism is a huge one, ageism, colorism, texturism, featureism. All of these things intersect to really inform the experience that we have in this oppressive society. So that's important to realize too. So this may look like wage gaps, right? Breaking barriers. I know this was the case for me, being the only one, the first one in the position that I was in at the job that I was in, feeling this pressure of my entire community on me to succeed, right? To learn everything that I was not given the proper resources to learn. And so that led to me overworking myself, right? And this is the case for a lot of us. Yeah. Thank you, Jasmine. So excited for this discussion, trying so hard to decouple my worth from my job, but it's so hard. Yeah, I get this. It is hard. And thank you for calling it out, because it is. This is not easy. This is not easy. Yeah. All those isms. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, Michelle says, I've never seen a person with my maiden last name Price. Really? Every time I see your name on YouTube, I think of that. Like, wow. Wow. That's so interesting. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, no. No, absolutely not. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that just made me think of how many Prices I've come into contact with. Quite a few, especially where I'm from. Yeah. Thank you. Look, Goldie, hello. Good to see you. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. But yes, again, breaking barriers, the pressure to overwork, if you're the first one, wherever you are, right? The pressure that is to push past the point of exhaustion when your body needs to rest, because you have this idea that you have to be the first to make it, right? Even if the environment is toxic, even if it's harmful, even if you're not given the resources that you need to succeed, you have this deeply ingrained belief that you have to make it work, right? This is what I was struggling with in this job before I came to the radical acceptance, right? That this will actually break my body down. And I had to be real with myself about that, right? So none of this is easy. The point of intervention where you can actually advocate for yourself on your own behalf and then remove yourself from environments that demand these things of you, right? Working past the point of exhaustion. Because this is dehumanizing. And it has to be said. Yeah. The strong Black woman archetype, the harmful, dehumanizing archetype that tells us that we don't need rest. We don't need care. We can just push past anything that we're feeling. We don't even have emotions. We don't even have feelings. We're here to work, right? So even understanding that archetype, how it plays in, especially with intersectionality, right? Again, race, gender, class, sexual orientation, ableism, all of these things like intersect to inform our experience in the workplace, especially, but just in life, right? So this may be a reason why you're overworking as well. But yes, let me know if y'all have any questions, anything that you're doing to intervene if you notice yourself overworking. Yeah, because we share knowledge collectively here, and I always learn from y'all too. Michelle says, OMG, that's how I felt. Yes. About being a first generation college student and graduate in my immediate family. I had to do it. That's how it was pushed. Yes. Yeah. 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 And I've talked about that before, right? Experiencing kind of that same thing, not even from my family, but from me, from messages that I had picked up, right? And internalized, that I had to push myself past this point when my body was like, no, I can't go any further. It's like, yes, you can. And when are we taught to override our natural voice that tells us to stop? That's something I've been sitting with. When did I start to override that? And why? Right? That's, yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Yes. So even during, like I said, enslavement, segregation, right, as I talked about on my channel before, Black women and girls were often placed on the front lines of desegregation efforts. We were told to overwork, to push through, to prove our value, our worth, right, to people who would never see it. And so what ramifications did that have? On our mental health, our physical health, we know the cost is not small when we push past that voice that tells us to stop. And we have to be conditioned to do that because we don't come here doing that, right? If we look at kids, if we look at other living things, right, we see that they know the point to stop and they stop. So when do we start overriding that? And who tells us to start doing that? And what are the costs of doing that? Questions to consider. Yeah, I'm sitting with myself. Michelle says, not knowing all the debt, the shame for taking so long to finish. I'm sorry. Yeah. And there's no timeline. There's no timeline on finishing. A degree program is frozen, y'all. If I'm frozen, hopefully I'm back. But yeah, the debt, the student debt, right? I did a video on this with Alicia Renice, Jim Crow debt, as it's referred to, because we're deliberately placed in these traps, these debt traps, as we've seen throughout history. That tells us that if we just do this, then people will see us as valuable. People will see our worth. I think we have proven that to be false, right? Especially now we've seen, right? So overworking ourselves is not the solution to people seeing us as worthy. It's not, but we've been told that over and over again. And I think it's time to really ask ourselves, is that true? Has overworking ourselves, pushing ourselves past the point of exhaustion, getting everything that we're told to get, has that garnered what we're told it was going to garner us? Or are we being set into a trap to have the mental health challenges that come with overworking, the physical health challenges? Right? Yeah. Oh, I love this. Thank you. I deliberately schedule Mondays off. Ways to intervene. Thank you for sharing this. Yes. Can you take time for yourself unapologetically? Schedule days off when you can. Schedule time off. Schedule an hour of you time. to do something that brings you joy, right? When you notice yourself overworking. Yeah. Yeah, Simone, hey, good to see you. Yeah, that Jim Crow debt always stops me. Yeah, that term. Yeah. Yeah, that term is so true. And I did not coin that term. That was in a resource I pulled from the video I did with Alicia. But yes. Yeah, that term is like, it's real, right? Because we've seen it throughout history. Sharecropping is the immediate example that comes to mind, right? These traps that we have been set into deliberately. This is not like something that just happened and this was the unintended consequence. No, this is intentional. This is very intentional. And so even operating with that radical understanding of what it is can help you guard against that, right? No, I'm not going to overwork because I know that you think that I'm not human and I don't need rest. False. False. I'm resting because I'm human. Yeah. 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 Hey, Leslie. Good to see you. Oh, no. You're not late at all. Not late at all. They lied. They lied. And you know, something I've been sitting with, right? The different, even thinking this goes perfectly with intersectionality. When certain people's knowledge and understanding of the world is cut off, even thinking about things like the patriarchy, when you cut off people's knowledge that you don't deem as being on your level, right, you're missing out on the full picture that could tell you what to expect if you go down this road, right? But because you don't view their voices as up to yours, you're cutting their knowledge off. You don't want to hear their voice. You're pushing them to the side. You're marginalizing them, right? And we actually need their voices to give us the idea of the full picture of what to expect when we're doing things like planning movements and efforts and stuff like that. Yeah. 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 Hey, yes, you bet. Unfortunately, it's not true. Yeah. And I grieve that effort and loss of possibility of success. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. The grief. The grief. Yep. Yep. When you've done everything right. You've been told that there's a certain formula, again, to achieve these things. And when you do it, sometimes it doesn't yield those results. And there's pressure to turn in on ourselves with that. That something's wrong with me, that I did something wrong, when really, I mean, honestly, it is a lie, right? Whether intentionally or unintentionally, it's not the full picture. Right? So yeah, I feel that. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, it's all a trap. I have a 6-year-old son and I'm trying to be intentional with my messaging to him. Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to do the same with my 1-year-old daughter. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. Being honest. Being honest about what it really is. Yeah. And I know sometimes it can be like, if I'm honest, then everything will break apart. But even like having experienced this, right? It doesn't break apart. It actually like leads to deeper healing when you're honest, right? That this was never created for me to succeed in the first place. And I tried everything that I could, right? I overworked to the point of exhaustion. And I still did not yield the results that I wanted to yield because it was never set up for me. And that can be a grief process. Yeah. Yeah. Other reasons why you may overwork. You have been taught that your worth is measured by how productive you are. And I just looked up the definition of productive. It is defined as producing or able to produce large amounts of goods, crops, or other commodities. So even the term productive is not a human term. So where does this term come from? Enslavement. Right? Again, producing or able to produce large amounts of goods, crops, or other commodities. Do we come to Earth to produce these things, right? Something I've been sitting with. And where does this messaging come from that tells us that we're here to just be productive? Is that label human? And if we're viewing our worth by how productive or unproductive we are, what is that setting us up to do? If we're not able to produce, again, a large amount of goods, crops, or other commodities, we view ourselves as unworthy of being on Earth. Of being on Earth. Right? And so that may be a reason why you're overworking. If you were taught this, whether by a person, an institution, societal messaging, that you're only worthy if you produce, if you're productive. And even understanding that this is not a human term. Right? Like taking that, de-weeding that from your mind. That word is very harmful. I'm not productive, so I can't rest. I'm not productive, so I have to keep pushing myself to be productive. Right? Not every day are we going to be able to produce something. That's not how living things work. There has to be periods of rest in everything that lives. So why would we be any different? Yeah. Come on, Leslie. I came to create, not produce. I love that. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. And ways to intervene, right? This could be something that you substitute. If you notice yourself saying internally, I'm not being productive today. You could say, I didn't come here to produce. I didn't come here to be productive. I came here to create whatever I want. Yeah. It seems we're always grieving. Honesty does not guarantee we will find any semblance of correctness. Yeah. They appear to always have a plan for our failure while making us think we are getting ahead. Yeah. Mm-hmm. The truth in that, yes. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Yep. And so can you remove that blame that you may be carrying around that's not yours to carry? Pushing yourself past the point where your body says, I need to stop. I need to take a break. Even understanding where that first happened in your life, right? And in history. I think both are important. When did we start receiving these messages that we have to push ourselves past the point where our bodies are saying no? And who does this benefit? When we override our body's natural signals to stop, that we come here with, that every living thing comes here with, right? The ability to know when to rest, when to stop, when to take a breath. But we are socialized as machines. And why is that? Right? What systems are upheld by us feeling like we have to overwork, right? Pushing ourselves to overwork. And that's something I've been sitting with. Like, even if other people are pressuring you to overwork, there still has to be a level of internalization that happens for us to push ourselves to overwork, because that's unnatural. We don't come here doing that. And if we don't come here doing that, somewhere along the way, we've internalized a message that we now have to do this in order for XYZ, safety, right? Security, right? But are these things true? Are these things true? Yeah. Yes, and that productivity never results, yes, in a comparable merit increase working for pennies. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so we're doing all this, we're overworking ourselves. For what? For what? If we're not getting the things that we're being promised, if it doesn't feel good, if we don't, like you said, we're not getting the merit increase, what are we doing it for? And I don't have the answer to that, right? I have a few things floating around, but that's just a question to sit with. Michelle says productivity had me in a chokehold for so long, multitasking, trying to get more than one thing done, and being exhausted. Yeah, I have found been trying to unitask. I love that. I have found it's less exhausting and it's more efficient. I have never heard this term before. I love it. So instead of multitasking, can you unitask? Thank you, Michelle. Can you unitask? I'm only going to work on one thing and put all of my energy, all of my effort into this one thing, and then move on to something else versus trying to handle like 20 tasks at one time. Again, as we're socialized to do within these institutions, it started in kindergarten for me. Multitasking, right? And asking, is this natural? Did I come here doing this or was this taught to me? And if it was taught to you, it's something that you can unlearn. Yeah. Leslie says, I hear my mother say all the time she needs to be productive and she is retired. Yeah, it hurts my heart all the time. Yeah. Yeah. And it never stops. This pressure to be productive, once we've internalized it, and we may not be aware of it, which I'm going to get into, that voice keeps going. No matter how many things you do, no matter how many tasks that you complete, it's like, okay, what's the next one? We can't even sit with what we've already done because it's the pressure to continuously be productive, which again is not a human term. Yeah. And trying to overwork and being productivity, yes, just makes a job give you more work and no pay to match. Don't I know? Don't I know? Thank you. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, I got you. Yeah. 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 So we're being rewarded with more work. For overworking, the reward is more work. Yeah. I'm currently sitting with the idea of not turning around and doing the same to others. Same thing to others. I want to make sure that I don't, even though we need the help. Yeah. 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 Unitasking seems the way to go. Yeah, I do love that term. Yeah, I've never heard that term. Unitask instead of multitask. I love that. Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. So other reasons why you may overwork. You fear being replaced. This one's kind of heavy. Ooh, when I said that, like, ooh. Right? These systems create fear, which creates competition, right? They encourage us to be in competition with each other constantly. Overworking so that you can beat this person next to you for a coveted position. Right? This fear is so deep of being replaced. And it's real, right? Though it doesn't exist in reality, the conditions are created so that the fear is real because it's rooted in real things that we see happening. Manufactured competition, scarcity within these systems. And if y'all want to read more about this, I recommend this website. Yeah. You fear that the person who works harder than you, who pushes themselves past the point of exhaustion, will get the thing that you want. So you feel like you have to outwork them. So, what do these systems of scarcity, fear, control lead us to do that's not really who we are? We come here with a spot already created for us. I think I wrote about this before. Our spot was already carved out for us. That's why we're here. We don't see trees competing, right, in the traditional sense with each other. Right? Only one can make it, only one tree. Why do we receive that messaging? Who does it benefit? The fear of being replaced. How does that make you overwork? And by unlearning these beliefs, these oppressive beliefs, can you get yourself free from that and understand that your place is already carved out? Your downloads are your downloads. Your vision is your vision. Your gifts and talents will always be yours. Hey, Maya. Maya Spikes writes, yes, we're not just competing with each other. We're competing with machines. I was just thinking about that AI. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. Yeah. So that's very real. That could be a whole other discussion. Yes. Mm-hmm. I told an employer that they would never be able to replace me unless they hire 4 people. He laughed and I quit. Then he had to hire then he had to hire 5 people to do what I was doing. See, Leslie, you told them. You told him. He didn't believe you. So now you got to hire 5 people. See? Thank you. Yeah. There can only be one. There can only be one. And how many of us are told that? Right? So we feel pressure to do things that are not even aligned with who we are. Because this fear of being replaced. That is so deeply ingrained. Yeah. Yes. It's every person for themselves. It is. And so to intervene, right, to resist against that, I think embracing community, realizing again that we each have our own path that's already been carved out for us. And by collaborating with aligned people, that vision can become even bigger. Right? And realizing when these tactics are at play, this fear mongering. If you don't do this, if you don't overwork yourself, then you're going to be replaced with, right? Yeah. Other reasons, overworking is rewarded in this society. So we get praise externally for overworking, starting in kindergarten, earlier than that. Straight A's, perfect attendance, all of these rewards that we get externally, the validation for pushing ourselves past when we knew that we needed to stop. And who does this benefit? Maya, yes. Oh my gosh, about you. Yes, talk about, yes. F around and find out. Work edition. Leslie, you tried to tell them. You tried. Mm. The entitlement. Wow. I'm sorry, Leslie. That's wild. I'm sorry. Whew. And yes, the ego, the entitlement to our labor, which is one of the ways that we resist by withholding. And something I've been thinking more about to stop overworking, to recognize the signs when our body is saying stop. I'll recommend. Hopefully, I'm back. But yes, let me find that again. We Will Rest: The Art of Escape by Trisha Hersey, which I just finished reading. Um, if you're struggling to rest within these systems, even understanding how to take rest for yourself because it will not be given, and even sitting with that radical understanding that it will not be given, but you can still take it for yourself as we have done throughout generations. And she has stories in this book of people who have escaped slavery through various means, something that was told to be impossible, and yet it happened. They took what was not given to them, understanding that freedom would not be granted. So I have to find a workaround because I'm not doing this. And understanding that you have the power within you to do that, to resist, to challenge against systems that tell you that you're not human, that you don't need rest, that you need to keep overworking to achieve what you should already be granted, right? Humanity, respect. These are not things that can be earned. And I think that's a lie that a lot of us are told that it can be. If someone does not see you as human, you overworking yourself is not going to prove to them that you're human. Yeah. Hey, Dr. Kamani, good to see you. Yes, good to see you. You'll be published soon, Leslin. Celebrating you. We need to hear more about your book whenever you like to share. No pressure. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Yeah, Debbie says straight A's, perfect attendance. That was me, but learn that those who do just enough to get by get the most recognition. Yeah. Those with strong work ethics will always do more to our detriment. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah. All those awards, right, that start so early on that tell us to keep going, to not take a sick day, to continue pushing, to continue striving for external validation and approval. So we're set up in these workplaces even to do the same thing around people who do not see us as human, who just want our labor. Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 I always have use it or lose it vacation over, wow, 1,000 hours of sick leave. Well, I would encourage you, no pressure. Please take time off. Take time off. Yes. Any time that you have, this is something I've had to learn too. Any benefit that you have, where you are, please take it. Please take it. Take the vacation. Take the sick time, right? All of it. Use it up. because other people are told this messaging that it's for them. It's for us. Even reframing that. Yeah, it's for us. The rest is for us. It is, yeah. Hello, welcome. Yes, it is frustrating. Yeah. Take the time off, please, and rest. Yeah, please. It is shameful how much leave I have. Yes, I'm taking time starting later this month, celebrating you. Yes. Please do. Yeah, and it can be difficult, right? Just to have grace and compassion for yourself with that. It can be difficult. Again, when we've received all these messages for our entire lives, something I have on my list, like you are literally rewiring your brain, your synapses. By telling yourself you're not here to overwork. You're not here to labor for other people. This is decades of messaging telling you the opposite. So this is not an easy process all the time. And so it takes time, radical self-compassion, right? All the grace with yourself to recognize that this has been intentional messaging over a long period of time. And so now you're having to unlearn what was never meant for you. You're having to do that work when it should never have to be your work to do. We appreciate you sharing that with us. I know a lot of people can relate to that. Yeah. SP says, I want to acknowledge the anger. I'm so angry, yes, that we are still having to work through these mindsets. When will our time of rest actually come? Yeah. Yep. Sitting with the anger, yes. Yep. Absolutely. From generation to generation, right, over a period of centuries. And we're still receiving this message that we're here to labor. And again, we're having to do the work to de-weed these beliefs that are harmful, that result in mental health consequences, physical health consequences. We're having to do that. Why? There's anger with that too. Why should I have to do this? When this is messaging that I internalized that was meant to ensure my continued oppression. That should not be your work to do. Yeah. Black women have so many layers to work through to reach our core collective. Yeah. I know we can get there, but I am ready for identity to not always reside in work. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. 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 Just asking yourself that, like, who are you when you have nothing to do? Something I've had to ask myself. And I'll write here. Who are you when you have nothing to do? Have you given yourself space to explore that? Even in small increments, in those moments of rest when nothing is going on, can you take time to check in with yourself? What brings me joy? What activities do I like to do? What do I like to read? What do I like to watch? Who do I like to be around? Right? And untying your identity from what you do, from your job, from your title. Because before you had a job, and I know this sounds kind of like, yeah, but seriously, before you had a job, you were a person. Before you entered the workforce, before you entered the education system, you were still a person. You were a whole person. So what are those things that brought you joy even back then? That might be a way to start thinking about these things. going back to your core essence. Before the trauma of racial capitalism told us that we are here to work, that we are here to be exploited from, who were we before this messaging took effect, before we started overriding our nervous system? Because a lot of answers can be found there, who we were before all of this. Yeah. I am asleep when I have nothing to do. That's who I am. I'm so freaking done. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry you're done because, yeah. Been battling that feeling sometimes too. Yeah. Yeah. But sleeping, resting, right? And often when we rest, as Trisha Hersey tells us, even in the book that I recommended, we will rest. That is where our dream space is reactivated. When we take the time to rest. And so there's a vested interest in us overworking ourselves so that we don't have time to dream. In her stories of people liberating themselves from enslavement, it had to start with a dream that this is not all there is to life. So dreams are powerful, right? And when we rest, we have space to dream of new possibilities, of different ways of living. And that's why there's so many efforts to, right, continue having us overwork. So we do not have that space to tap into. That is the site of our liberation. Oh, thank you. Michelle says, this is so good. I have been watching you, Alicia Renice, yes, Stephanie Perry, and a few others for a few months, and I've been gradually trying to slow down and rest, but I fear appearing lazy. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That is on my list. Yeah. I appreciate you sharing that. Yeah. That fear, that's real for a lot of us. Yep. For taking time to ourselves, again, these things that every living being needs. Rest. Care. We're taught that we're not even living beings. We're taught that we're machines. So that's why it feels so difficult sometimes to even consider resting. I mean, if you think about your phone, does your phone need rest? Right? Even that concept is like, no. That's how we have been socialized and conditioned. Not even as living beings. And so it requires a deep deprogramming to even grant yourself permission. Understand that you are the only one who can give yourself permission to rest. And I'll be talking more about this tomorrow night in my free event that I'll be hosting with Sister Afia Community Care at 6 p.m. Central. If y'all are registered, there will be future events. So please get on my email list. I meant to put that up. Yes. Because this one is at capacity. But please get on my email list here to be notified about future rest events, reclaiming your inner peace events, resisting systemic oppression, intersectional oppression events. As we've seen, right, the efforts to extract and exploit our labor at every turn, telling us that we're not human, telling us that we're not even living beings, right? This is oppressive messaging that we have internalized. And now that makes it so difficult for us to realize that we need the same things that all living beings need. And it's really that deep. Yeah. And yes, y'all, please visit my website. If you're interested in healing offerings, I do have webinars, workshops, something I'll get into to attachment styles and how this plays into it. But yes, I have a workshop with Angela Kanu. If you are healing from an insecure attachment style, we do have a recorded webinar that you can purchase on my website. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for this. Please like all the YouTuber stuff. Please like. Please comment if you are on a journey of refraining from overworking yourself any longer, of getting to the point where you're like, I'm not doing this anymore. Even if you don't even know how to stop. The fact that you're at the place where I don't want to do this anymore, I don't want to overwork myself. Because I know the ramifications, I know the health consequences, even long-term, short-term and long-term, mental health consequences, physical health consequences, spiritual health. It's not small because we're overriding our body's natural signals to stop. Yeah. So yes, please like. Yeah. Catching up with the comments. Yes, Michelle says, or unproductive, but there is a level of rest that everyone else gets to experience that Black women just don't, and I want to. Yeah. 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 And realizing that that is for us too, right? Even an affirmation to repeat to yourself that may be helpful. Rest is for me too. Rest is mine. I'm a living being. I'm a human being, and so I must rest. There's no other way around it. Everything that lives has to rest. There's no scenario, right, where you are, again, producing this inhuman term. You're producing 100% of the time at the same level every single day. That's just not human. It's not living. It's machine. Again, it's your phone. Yeah. Debbie H says, I took a month off in September 2023 to move to another state and was only allowed to take it because I was moving. It was amazing, but getting the time approved to move made me feel some kind of way. Yeah, the approval, right? Being allowed, the permission. All of these things that society's literally set up, right? So we wonder why giving ourselves permission is so difficult, because we have been told over and over again. We have been told that we must get approval before we can do this thing. And so giving yourself permission feels kind of like, am I allowed to do this? Am I allowed to rest even though no one has told me, like, you need to take your rest? I'm allowed to tell it to myself. Sometimes that can be like a way to get to that point because of that socialization process. Yeah. And the real life consequences, right? When you don't ask for permission in some of these institutions, organizations, what happens? So recognizing that that's part of the system. And at the same time, you have autonomy over you. You have agency over you. You have to take your rest when you can take it and when you need it, because it will not be given to you. Again, drawing from, let me put her book back up here. We Will Rest, The Art of Escape by Tricia Henson. And if y'all are looking for kind of a fun read, because it's a quick read, It's deep, one that you'll have to read multiple times. But there are like illustrations throughout it. Again, it's touching on posters like liberation posters from the period of enslavement. It's deep. It's deep, but yes. Yeah. Debbie, thank you. Even machines are shut down at night. Yes. Mic drop. Thank you for this. Right? So even non-living things have to rest. So what is the level of oppression that we're experiencing that we don't even think that we can rest when machines have to rest at night? Machines have a period of shutting down, right, to recalibrate. But we don't even think we have permission to rest as people, as human beings. And when did that messaging start? Who does it benefit? How can you uproot it and really reclaim that for yourself, recognizing what this is, what these messages were always intended to do, right? Oppress us further. And how can you liberate yourself from these messages? Thank you, Debbie. That was a great point. Rest is mine. Affirmation. Something I'll be sharing tomorrow, right? Even on if you have a Post-it note or something that you can see every day with an affirmation to rest. So in the moments where you feel yourself overworking, again, re-embodiment is so important. Tap back into your body. There are certain signals that I experience when I'm overworking that I notice, right? If I'm getting a headache, if I'm feeling like flustered, or I need to get up and move, but I'm feeling the pressure to stay at my laptop and keep working. Now I know the signs and now I can intervene. And that's really the point of this video. The places and points where you can intervene to care for yourself. What are those places? When I notice X, Y, and Z, when I notice these symptoms appearing, that means I'm overworking. So in that moment, I'm actually going to step away from my computer and dance or go outside, right? Or meditate, whatever works for you. But knowing that there are places and points that you can intervene when you notice these things happening is important. Man, I can think of several BTS songs to counteract that. Well, now you got to share them. Now we got to hear the BTS songs. Hey, Coral, yes, even machines rest and shut down. They do. They do, yeah. Yeah. Quill Ritter, hello, yes. I have gotten to the point that I put my time in, but I'm still doing what I want. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Recognizing your agency within these systems, right, that we did not consent to be in. We're here trying our best to survive. But within these systems, we have personal agency that never goes away. Yeah. Okay, let me get back to my list. Here we go. Another reason, you grew up seeing your caregivers overwork themselves. So what examples did you see growing up? Who was around you? Did they push themselves past the point of exhaustion? And that's what you learned to do, right? Our minds are like sponges when we're young, right? In those early years, our minds absorb everything that we see. And so did you see someone push constantly, not be able to rest, feel guilty for resting, right? How have past generations influenced what we're experiencing in the present? And how can we understand what they may have been doing, right? The messages that they may have internalized. And also shift a new course for future generations. Electing not to overwork. In the places that you have agency and power to intervene, resting unapologetically and like demonstrating that. Right? I think about growing up, like the examples I saw of people resisting, those still sit with me. So how can we, right, going forward, chart a new course for future generations? Where overworking is not the standard, is not the example that we're setting. To gain these things that should be just given to us freely. Respect. Being humanity at its most basic. Yeah. Lesson says, yes, all the women in my life, and they still are. Even the retired ones wake up early and do stuff no one needs them to do. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. It runs deep. Yeah. Yeah. And she's still doing it. Yeah. 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 And that can be painful when we see people who we want to sit down, like just sit down and rest, please. We see them pushing past their boundaries. It hurts us, right? And so why do we do that to ourselves? Because all the times, like seeing caregivers push themselves past the point where they knew that they needed to rest, and I knew they needed to rest, but they couldn't. It was something that was so deeply embedded, so deeply ingrained through socialization, through conditioning, that they could not give themselves permission to rest. And it hurts you to see that. Right? Because you know that they're human and they need to rest. They need it. But it's something within us, we can't grant that to ourselves because we have been socialized in that way. Right? But recognizing the point of intervention. Where can you resist this messaging and take rest for yourself? If other people around you are looking at you as a model, what can you model for them? Because those examples are very powerful. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. I'm so sorry. Yeah. My mom passed from heart disease, and I do believe it was due to overworking in relationships and work. I'm sorry. Yeah. 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 That resonates with me. Yeah. And we've seen this over generations. We've seen the health consequences. And so how can we, as we are acknowledging that overworking is harmful, it is detrimental, it does not grant us what we're told it grants us, how can we chart a new course for future generations? Right? Something I've been sitting with. Yeah. Wow, thank you. Yeah, I did not see this growing up. For me, it started in the corporate arena, mainly from women managers. Interesting. I appreciate you sharing that. Yeah. Ooh, corporate spaces. And overworking. Yeah, because that's the default. Yeah. I relate to that as well. Yeah. Michelle said, this is also why I'm trying to be more intentional with rest and slowing down with my kids. Yeah, I love that. And that's powerful. Because again, our minds are sponges, especially very early on, right? We model our behaviors, even still, right? I think about some of the behaviors I have are direct reflections of what I grew up seeing. And that's how powerful they are. So if we modeled resting, if we modeled electing not to overwork, resisting that messaging, what change could that spawn for future generations? Yeah. Yeah. And that's so important too, like not just at work. Overworking is not just at work. That's a video topic right there, right? Like intersectionality, the labor that we are expected to contribute in relationships as Black women, and how that further leads us to overwork in different areas. Some ideas are coming up. Yeah. I appreciate y'all sharing that. Yeah. When we face the intersections of racism, anti-Blackness, sexism, misogyny, right? All of these multiple intersections, we see where we get the messaging to overwork. And so, how can we resist and take our labor back? Something I've been sitting with. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I'm already at an hour. Let me get through my list. Y'all. I appreciate y'all commenting as always, sharing your experiences, knowledge, resources, tips in the chat as we learn collectively and heal from overworking. Because I definitely don't have all the answers, right? This is just my thoughts, but collectively, as we share what we've experienced, different ideas and tips, that is healing collectively. So reason 7, right? You constantly strive as a trauma response, and this can be a whole video in and of itself. You are used to overachieving. That might be me. You have an ingrained behavior pattern, which does not mean it can't be unlearned. It just means that it's ingrained. And this is where you can lean into something like neuroplasticity, which I talk about, meaning the brain always has the ability to change as long as we're living. One of the beautiful parts about the brain, right? You can create new neural pathways. As you're realizing, I may be overworking as a trauma response, right? Feeling the need to control things. A lot of things I can't control externally, but I can control me overworking, and I can feel power in that. Something that I have experienced, right? When everything around me felt like it was crumbling, at least I knew that I could overwork. A detrimental behavior, right? And giving myself all the grace, compassion in the world because this is what I learned to do, right? But also noticing and understanding that that was not helping me. That need to control really resulted in my health being impacted, pushing myself past the brink, right? And I have here the stigma of being called lazy. The fawning trauma response. And fawning is a people-pleasing trauma response meant to avoid conflict in the short term, but it can result in long-term mental health consequences. And something I'll be talking about more, fawning and oppression. We are often taught to fawn, right? To push off the impacts of oppression, to appeal to our oppressors, to avoid being called lazy, right? Which is a projection. Shout out to Alicia Renice. Oppression is projection. It's projection. It's projection. So if someone has even called you these terms, right? Can you identify who said them and then remove them from your internal monologue? No, I'm not lazy. I'm human. No, I'm not lazy. I actually need to rest. Can you recognize when you are operating in a trauma response? And let me know if a video or further discussion on this would be helpful. Yeah, can you recognize when you're operating in that and then go a different path? Something that's been helpful for me. I recognize that I'm trying to control things because things outside of me feel very out of control. So I'm overworking because of that. But I'm choosing not to. I'm actually going to replace that with an activity that brings me joy. And understanding that you have the power to do that. You don't have to just continue in the trauma response once you recognize it. Once you recognize that it's unhelpful, it's harmful to you, you can replace that with something that actually benefits you. Right? And those of us who were bullied, right? I know overachieving, overworking was a way for me to cope with being bullied in school, right? Again, the straight A's, the honor roll, constant academic achievements. So if this is something that resonates with you, know that you're not alone. And radical self-compassion is in order. Yeah. Okay, reason 8. You feel that you have to overcompensate because you don't belong. So people around you may have told you that you shouldn't be in your position where you are in the workplace, even in school, that you don't deserve to be there. You're proving your competence, right? Battling stereotypes of mediocrity, which again is projection, in professional environments, educational environments. Navigating, again, intersectionality, intersectional oppression, racism, sexism in the workplace. And you're overcompensating through excessive work to try to prove your worth, something that you come here with already. Right? So if you notice these narratives happening internally, where something like journaling, voice noting, identifying the narratives that are happening within you. Whose voice is running around in your head? Because we don't come here criticizing ourselves. We don't come here pushing ourselves. That has to be taught to us. So understanding that, did someone tell you that you don't deserve to be here? And can you write them a note? Right? You don't even have to give it to them, right? But just like in your journal, write them a note. De-weed that voice from your mind, from your psyche. And affirm to yourself that you belong anywhere that you are. Reason 9, and this is a huge one: people-pleasing, codependency, anxious attachment style. Just a few definitions. People-pleasing is a pattern of behaviors you engage in to get others to like you and to avoid rejection, criticism, or embarrassment. This is a survival response that we develop early on in childhood, right? So this could be playing out codependency, imbalanced relationships where one person enables another's self-destructive behavior, anxious attachment, right, due to inconsistent caregiving at an early age, which may result in low self-esteem, strong fear of rejection or abandonment, and then clinginess in workplace relationships too, right? But in all types of relationships. So can you set boundaries? Which is easier said than done. Little by little, over time, saying no to things that drain your energy. Right? Understanding when you're overworking. attuning yourself to your own needs versus hyper focusing on everyone outside of you, which we have been taught to do so often. Yes, Quill Ritter says, yes, I feel like I do this by being super nice, or making myself small when I'm actually really outgoing. I can relate to this. Yeah, thank you for sharing. Yeah. Yes. It's real. Yeah. Um, yeah, I had a video idea of doing like what being the nice girl has cost me, right? Of agreeing to everything that I didn't necessarily agree with in reality. But as a recovering people pleaser, and again, as a survival response that I adopted very early on, that has led me down those paths. And just the fact that you're noticing that, right? You're actually really outgoing. But this has been a way to, I know for me, survive harsh environments. That's huge. Yeah. Yes, having to unlearn is a journey. It is. It absolutely is. Yeah. Yeah. Debbie says, I was taught that you go to work. That does not mean I have to do all the work. Yes. I was taught that you go to work. That does not mean I have to do all of the work. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Yep. Mm. Yeah. And just like an affirmation like that, like even if I had that in the job that I was in, right, realizing that I don't have to do two roles, even though it's proposed to me as something that's like, oh, this is beneficial, right? This is great for you to work two roles because we're viewed as workhorses in these work environments, realizing that you don't have to do that, that you have agency. That can be life changing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, as we're wrapping up, reason 10, you're scared to sit still. So you may be using avoidance as a coping strategy for deeper issues that are deeply painful, right? And this is where radical self-compassion, giving yourself compassion on top of compassion on top of compassion for surviving what you went through. You're still here with us, right? All the grace, right? And this is where therapy, I did link therapy resources in the description if you would like to check those out. Community support circles may be beneficial. Communities like this, I hope are helpful, right? To heal, start to heal those wounds. Yeah. Because a lot of us can be overworking as a way to avoid. And even having that awareness is huge. Getting to that level where you recognize I'm overworking because I'm avoiding something I don't want to think about. I'm not ready to. Even if you're not at the point to address it. Having that awareness is critical. It's critical. Yeah. Debbie says, I can relate. There are times when I do not speak up to avoid coming off as a know-it-all. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And so did someone say that along the way? When you had all the confidence, all the like surety in what you were saying and the question that you were asking, and then someone like went over and just dimmed your light? Because I've had to like comb through some of those memories myself, right? Realizing where these thoughts even came from. This voice of self-criticism. It is one I had taken on because of the treatment that I experienced externally. And then I had internalized it. And I was talking to myself like that. And that's where you have to intervene. Because if you start becoming your own bully, your own worst critic, right? When you should be your own safe place. Because this world has enough danger to encounter. How can you be your own safe place, your own point of refuge, of care, of softness, of concern for you, for your wellness, for your well-being, right? And unlearning that voice that tells you that you have to push yourself, overwork yourself to be worthy. It's just not true. It's not true. I love that, yes. If you're actually the smartest person in the room, let them eat cake. Let them eat cake. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Ooh. Yeah, so a bonus one, as we're winding down, you don't even know you're doing it. You don't even know you're overworking until you get to the point where your body says, I can't do anymore. I can't work anymore. I can't push myself. There's not a level I can push myself to anymore. I'm done. And a lot of us will get to that point not even recognizing, right, the signals that our bodies were giving to us along the way because we've been taught to ignore our bodies. Again, we've been taught that we're machines, that we don't even have bodies really. That the signals that they're giving us, we should override immediately. To earn this coveted thing that's always shown to us, right? Approval, acceptance, humanity, that we just have to push through. And so you may not even be realizing that you're overworking yourself. Can you tune in through things like journaling, stretching, gentle stretching, voice noting to yourself, patterns of behavior that you recognize, noticing the physical symptoms when they pop up? Is it around a certain thing that you're doing, an environment that you're in? Becoming aware of how your body feels before a crisis occurs. I think this is important, right? Knowing that you don't have to reach the crisis level where you can't even move before you grant yourself rest. Intervening before that. Literally being your loudest advocate, right? And not taking no for an answer from yourself. Because again, if you've internalized the messages that oppressors send us that we don't need rest, you can be your own person telling you, you don't need to rest. Keep going, right? Keep pushing. Having an awareness that that is not your voice is huge. That's not your voice. That's someone else's voice. And so bringing your awareness back to how are you feeling day by day, hour by hour, in different situations that you're in, taking your power back and intervening and granting yourself rest. And again, if this visualization is helpful, knowing what path A leads to, the path of overworking. You've been down this path multiple times. Now I'm talking to myself, right? For multiple years, for decades maybe, you've been down this path. You know what it will yield. What if you took path B of granting yourself rest, of choosing not to overwork when your body is giving you that signal, of leaning into your humanity, right? Understanding that every living thing needs to rest, even as Debbie, I think, shared with us, right? Even machines rest. So why do we receive the messaging that we don't need rest? And what are the larger dynamic society messaging? Every time we step out into the world. Yeah. Hey, Rabia. Good to see you here. Always good to see you here. Thank you for joining. Yeah. Debbie says, Marissa, I'm so there. My weekends are sacred. 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 Setting your own boundaries. right? Putting gates around your own time. And part of that is viewing your time and your energy as sacred, because we've been taught to devalue our contributions, our labor, our time, our energy. No, no. Valuing that for yourself. And then as you value it, putting those safeguards around. No one can touch it. No one can touch it. No one can type it back. Yes. But people may have a reaction to that. So preparing yourself for that in advance. When I have set a boundary with this person in the past, I know that their reaction is this. And so they'll probably react to me in this way going forward. Can you prepare for that? Right? And I'm still going to do it. And I'm still going to take my rest. Because this is what I need. Getting to the point where you're able to put those barriers, that force field around the things that you need in your life, rest, care, right? Keep adding to that list, please. What things do you need in your life to be well? To stop overworking, to reclaim your power at the different places that you can, right? Which is every place. And taking a different path, right? Charting a new path. Like I said, if there are younger people around you, having that example of seeing someone unapologetically put themselves first, rest, choose not to overwork. What legacy are you creating with that? If we think about this generationally, since so many of us have been impacted by seeing our elders push past the point of exhaustion, and we've seen how that has hurt us. Right? Yeah. And I love that. Thank you, Debbie, for sharing that. Yes. 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 Rabia says yes. Rabia, yes. If my phone goes a while without being turned off, it'll malfunction. Yep. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So again, seeing different examples around us. We want our phones to work all the time. Sometimes they need to be powered off. But we're not able to grant ourselves permission to do the same thing. Can you change that? Right? Not viewing yourself as a machine, but as a human being who needs rest to have a sustainable, long life, which is the goal. Right? And really resisting, going back to the first reason, the trauma of racial capitalism that tells us that we're here to be exploited, that our labor is here to be extracted. Resisting against that. But yes, y'all, as we're winding down, I want to thank y'all so much for being here on this Tuesday. I'll be going live with Dr. Maya, and we went to the same social work school. So we'll be talking about the trauma of academia for Black women. I have my master's degree in social work. Dr. Maya has her PhD in social work, and I linked her dissertation in the description of that video. Please read it. It's amazing. That will be Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern. We'll be talking about that. If you've been in academia, you've experienced the aggressive behaviors, the gaslighting, the talking down to you, the lack of resources, all of these things that we experience over and over again in academic institutions, please tune into that conversation Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern, and please share it with other Black women who it can resonate with. Yes, that will be a healing conversation. If you have been traumatized in academia, which a lot of us have. Yeah. Oh, thank you for this. I appreciate that, Coral. Yes, weekends are sacred. Weekends are sacred. Yep. Yes. Okay. Yes, Linda says, I feel like the reverse is happening to me. Excuse me, while I was ahead of the curve, living my life slowly, many religious Africans and Caribbeans at my SDA church made me feel like I was lazy and unworthy. I'm sorry. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That could be a whew. I appreciate you sharing this, Linda. Yes. It's something we have to talk about. We have to talk about it, right? Religion, the impacts of religion, yeah. And how these messages are reinforced. Absolutely. Yeah. You're welcome, Debbie. Thank you for being here. Thank you for this feedback. Yes. The dissertation is in the description of the live on Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern. So I have that scheduled on my channel. If you click on that thumbnail, you'll see Dr. Maya's dissertation linked in the description section. On colorism amongst African American, I'm trying to remember the title. Youth, girls? Yes. Lesson says, such a great conversation. Thanks, Marissa, and everyone for sharing and making me so much stronger. Oh, you make us stronger, Leslie. I appreciate this. Yes, you make us stronger with everything that you share too. Seriously. And you're so welcome. You're welcome. Thank you for being here. Yes. Yes. All right, y'all. I hope y'all have a beautiful rest of your Tuesday. I am hosting a free webinar. I do want to say that real quick. If you're interested in freelancing, work anywhere, live everywhere, freelancing 101 for Black women will be happening next Thursday, the 19th, 7 p.m. Eastern. Please feel free to share this with other Black women in your networks who may be interested in freelancing, getting out of traditional work environments and becoming a freelancer. Like a lot of other people do, has kind of been off limits to us. We haven't been presented with that as an option before. But this is something that we can do because we have so many skills, which is all freelancing requires, right? And it does require an entrepreneur track. So if you're not interested in owning your own business, this is probably not for you, right? But if you're interested in leaning into your skill set to build your own business, your own client base, this webinar will be helpful for you if you'd like to attend next Thursday. And here's the link to register. All right, y'all. I appreciate y'all. Again, please get on my email list because I'll be hosting a free workshop tomorrow night with Sister Afia. It's at capacity now. Here's a link to get on my email list so you'll be notified when I do host future events, and also my website for workshops, webinars, healing liberation sessions, all things like that. Please subscribe to my channel if you're interested in this type of content going forward. Like this video and comment below if anything resonates with you. I appreciate y'all being here. You're welcome. You're welcome. Yes, thank you for being here. Happy afternoon. I love that. I love that. Yes. Bye, y'all. Bye, y'all. Yeah. Until Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern with Dr. Maya. See y'all. Bye.